All right, everyone. This talk is for fun. I don't want anybody here to think that this is like overly deep or serious. I had a lot of fun writing this talk. I really hope I don't. One of my big fears is that I go too dark at times. I'm trying not to. So just like if it sounds dark, laugh to help the people know that it's just a joke, whatever. But let's get moving. So I'm gonna die. Do you know you're gonna die? You are too. We're all gonna die. And that didn't used to bother me, but now, I've got these kids, I've got this family, and I've started to wonder, what will happen when I die? Will my kids, need me for advice or what, so on and so forth? And maybe that worried me for a minute until I realized, wait, we have AI now. What can we do? How can we use AI to kind of deliver on this concept of immortality? So that's kind of the goal of the talk. Can today's AI be used to create an immortal version of me? And this could apply to anyone. Like, you could totally rip off everything I used here. It would be cool to be able to release some of this too, but let's get right into it. So when I say immortality, what do I really mean? Well, for one thing, there's for your family, this emotional support. They miss just having a conversation with you. What if they could just hear your voice? What if they could talk? Oh, tell me the story about that one time. Or maybe for your kids or your friends, maybe they've come to rely on you for advice. Like they ask you, what would you do in this situation? Like, how can you help me? Or ask where you put the keys before you died. I also really am into this idea of an interactive tombstone. So imagine you're just walking through a graveyard and you just whoa. It's like, hey, ask me a question. But, this clicker's not working. Okay. I think we need to start by making sure everybody's on the same page when it comes to AI. So who here has used ChatGPT? Or similar, okay. Wait, who has not used ChatGPT? Who's never played with it? Okay, great, then we're good. Who here has played around with APIs for OpenAI or ChatGPT? Okay, great, so we're in good company. Don't need to do a lot of explanation. Let's get rolling. These are a couple, I think I got a laser. These are a couple of the big brands you hear about. Now, for me in the context of this talk, when I say AI, I'm talking about large language models. And when I talk about LLMs, I'm talking text in, text out. A lot of these services, when you use ChatGPT, there is so much sugar on both sides of that function call, the LLM itself. Though when I'm talking about it here, I'm really just trying to talk about the black box, the text in, the text out. That's it. So let's get going. So how could we create a V1 of immortality? This is the first thing I started thinking to myself. What can we do as a V1? What can we do to really test this out? So my idea was, hey, why don't I just take as much out of here and get it into text as possible, and then throw it in the blender of OpenAI and see what happens. So I locked myself in a room. So this is the first. This is more like what it looked like, and I locked myself in a room and just wrote for 3 hours. I was like, oh, you have this story, oh, this person. And I kind of played this 21 questions with ChatGPT. What's a high-level summary of my life? I live here, these are my family, I care about this. I took a big 5 personality quiz online where you're like, do you like hurting people? No, it's just eventually tells you. I put in all these quirks I could think of about my personality that I thought I'd want to have reflected, just a list of family and friends and their importance to me. And finally, just a general timeline of my life. Oh, from here to here, I lived here, and these type of things happened, and da-da-da. And I threw it into ChatGPT. This is it. This is all I got for this V1. It's just there's your personality quiz. I blurred it because, but that's all it is. And then at the very end, I'm throwing this into ChatGPT. I said, from here on out, I'd like you to respond as if you're me, Luke. I will always include the person asking the question, the year of my death. Please respond in similar style to my writing above. See how it goes. So how well do you think this is going to work? Does anybody have any thoughts? Yell them out.
I think it would be good for the first
Any other thoughts? Inconsistent. Michael doesn't like it. Well, let's do a little demo. So you'll notice I didn't do, oh no, don't ruin stuff, no. Okay, you didn't see that. Here's what I had said earlier, right? I'll always da-da-da. Now, I obviously didn't do a speaker intro yet, so I thought, well, why don't I try to have the AI do my speaker intro? So it's like, I always said, I was like, oh, who am I? I am the conference organizer. It's 2024. Luke died in 2023. We still need his speaker bio. It's a tech conference. 3 bullets. Be humble. Otherwise, it got a little out of control. It's like before Caesar would come to town, they announce it. No fucking way, this is gonna be brutal. Maybe because so many people, let's do Claude. Let's see what Claude does. It's next best thing, right? Although this is the problem with live demos, right? When you have 200 other people, okay. Italics, speaks in a tone similar to Luke's writing style above. Here's a humble speaker bio for Luke. Luke was passionate about scaling systems and infrastructure, getting the chance to tackle major challenges at fast-growing companies like Coinbase and Clubhouse. He would usually be found cycling around town or goofing off with the latest AI toys. Okay. More than anything, Luke loves spending time with his wife, family, and their 3 wonderful kids. Family always came first. Let me know if you need anything else. It's not bad. I mean, this is Claude. I actually had not tried this before, so I think that was fine. People say Claude Opus is better than GPT-4, but I don't actually think so. Now, what else could we ask? Does anybody want to toss a pot shot question in here? Oh, okay. What was... Now remember, there's... I will switch away real fast if it... Oh man, they're gonna find activity from this one too? Okay. Ha, my greatest, well... I don't even know what you're laughing at, but... Well, that's what it said. Okay, let's move on. It's okay. Like, it's basically what I would have said. Maybe something about like being able to switch off intensity, something like that. So it's not bad, right? It has a lot of information. It's able to do some stuff. It's not bad. And frankly, it's pretty good. We played around with this. I had my wife play with that a little bit, and she was a little bit surprised. Now, it does hallucinate, obviously. It doesn't. It tries to put together pieces of information that don't necessarily belong together. But it can do some weirdly good stuff. Obviously, I hadn't used Claude before, but OpenAI was able to do some kind of weirdly good stuff. But lots and lots is wrong with this, right? So obviously, it's not me. It's just a computer with facts. There's major gaps, just like 2,500 words. And it's missing that human touch. But still, it's good. It's kind of interesting. We're going to take it up a notch here today. And I'm going to do that in 3 ways. I'm going to make it more human, more of Luke, and easier to use. So we're going to see how that goes. We'll see if any of my demos even work with OpenAI. But that's the things we're going to try to do. So when we talk about more human, I'm just going to start out by saying voice is going to be really important. So has anybody heard of 11 Labs before? Great. So you sit there, and for me, I wanted to do this like professional voice cloning they have. So it says it can create a near perfect clone of what it hears, including all the intricacies and characteristics of voice. We'll see. It's recommended that you have 30 minutes of audio, but for the optimal audio result and the most accurate clone, we recommend closer to 3 hours of audio. So talk about this a little more later, but I made this basically sound booth in my basement using my kids' Nugget Forts and a cheap Amazon microphone I bought, and I just talked for as long as I could. I tried to keep it interesting. I'll talk more about this in a little bit, but that's how I started. I'll get to the demo of this soon, but I basically recorded all this audio and uploaded it to 11 Labs. This is what it looks like if you're not familiar with how these type of things look. You put in like 34-year-old male who's clearly alive. You can just click record audio, so I can just create really quickly a sample now. Like I could do 30 minutes of talking like this, and it would just clone it and sound pretty darn reasonable, even with just 30 seconds. I'm already at 11 seconds. I might as well actually try to do this. The craziest thing about this is that with literally 30 seconds and a computer mic, it does actually get pretty close. Now with the actual real microphone and the actual studio setting, like this is gonna be super echoey. It won't be very good. Okay, so it's done. So let's go ahead and Luke 5, add the voice. So I'll come back to that later. So then we need a little bit of the more of Luke. So it needs to know a lot more, like a lot more. Life experiences, stories, reflections, feelings, beliefs, values, sense of humor, everything about everybody. Decision-making frameworks, a lot of information. And in order to do that, surely we need a custom AI model, right? Instead of ChatGPT, it's LukeGPT. A lot of people might jump to this conclusion. For those of you who've been to my last AI talk, I'm a big fan of standing on the shoulder of very rich giants, and that very rich giant is OpenAI. So OpenAI has built what is, in my mind, an incredible model with GPT-4. It's very good at forming sentences. It can think through real-life scenarios, understands different roles, piece together disparate information, et cetera, et cetera. Really powerful stuff. They paid, for GPT-4, they probably paid multiple billions of dollars, if I had to guess. And my goal is to basically shim it with a prompt. I want the best possible prompt that I can put on top of OpenAI. And I call this the one big prompt model. Basically, how can I fit how I talk, how I think, facts about me, my personality, into this little red sliver on top? And how far can that take me? Now, there are problems with one big prompt. So GPT-4 Turbo Preview, which is what we're using today, it's limited to 128,000 tokens. So I'm just going to use words. That's 100,000 words. It's going to be slower to have one big, long prompt, and it's going to be very expensive. So every time I run a fully loaded prompt on GPT-4 Turbo Preview, it costs $1. So every single time I request this, it costs $1. But there are ways around some of this. And broadly speaking, all the experimentation I've ever done is that this is the way we're going to get the best results. There are little things we could do to probably get better, but this is going to be 90% of what gets us the best result, not just with an immortality toy gimmick thing, but really anything you do. And the reason I really like one big prompt, just like as a meta thing, is right now, GPT-4 Turbo, 128,000 tokens. A year ago, we only got 8,000 tokens. Now we're at 128,000. Gemini 1.5 Pro, which I wanted to use for this talk, but it sucks really bad. Doesn't even work most of the time. It's already at 1 million tokens. And they claim that 10 million's in research. If you think about my life and how much I need to put into it, let's say I live another year, we're going to be able to 4x the amount of context. Every year that goes by, we're going to be able to fit in more. So yeah, I like the one big prompt. But what can we actually fit in there? So I'm a big journaler. I journal every day. I take a lot of photos every day. And I'm a big texter, so whatever, 10, 100 texts a day. So can we just jam this all in? Theoretically, if the context window is big enough, we could just jam this all in. But unfortunately, I do have a lot of data. So 5 years for me is equivalent to like 3 million words. So that's like 100,000 words a year in journal entries. Every year I generate 450,000 words sent and received with iMessage. And then if I take all my photos, which is like 7,000, I get 20 words of metadata out of each one, usually. That's not going to be able to fit in a prompt. So I needed to come up with a way to be able to fit as much context about myself in a clever way into this prompt. So basically, this is all my context. I need to squeeze it down to that. So I get 3%. The idea I came up with was, what if I use AI to chunk and condense all this data into a way that's really easy to use inside of the actual prompt itself? So my thought was, what if for every month I take all my iMessages, all my journals, and all my photo metadata, and I condense it down to 500 words for the month. It says everything I did for the month, what happened, how I was feeling, da-da-da. So what I did is I basically made a Mondo crazy script. I took my iMessages. They're just SQLite databases on your computer. You can just query them. You join them with your contacts table, and you can really easily create this output here. So this is like my family chat, because it's not got anything saucy in it. And it merges it together. I strip everything out, print it out in a useful format. Goes into the prompt. Then my journal entries. This was super fucking annoying because they're all in OneNote, so I had to launch a Windows VM and run all these stupid scripts. But I got them all into searchable date-stamped journals by month. Photos is actually very cool. So if you're a Mac OS user and an iPhone user, you can actually just take your Photos DB, iterate through each photo, like filter it by date or whatever, and build this metadata. So I can put the location, which is the actual address the photo was taken. It has keywords associated with each one, like, oh, there's a water slide on it, or this or that. And put all the location metadata of every single photo you take. And then at the end, I take all this, I put it into ChatGPT, I say, here are my journals, here are my messages, here's the photo metadata for the month. I want a terse summary of the month, maximum 500 words, categories I like to be included are blah, blah, blah. I just came up with this like on the fly. I had what was I worried about on here, but this is like one of those interesting questions. Like, when people are interacting with future me, do I want them to think about what I was worried about? When you're building a model like this, it's kind of interesting to take a step back. And if you actually have people using it one day, do you actually want the honest version of you? Or do you want the confident, cool version who solved all the world's problems? Like, what was I working on? You know, you can really, who you are, obviously, who we are, we project a lot of things. But this model I'm creating, I realized was actually getting a lot of the truth, right? Like quite a bit of truth. And it's like the ultimate honest talking to your therapist version of yourself. So something interesting to think about. And here's an example one. It's like December 2023 overview, encapsulated. There's no line break, so you can't see like what actually happens. But you get the general gist. I had to censor some stuff because it's like too personal. But you know, Luke designed on this ambitious mission, personal reflection, dotted with significant moments with shared family members. It noted that we took a trip based on the photo metadata. So it's really collecting a lot of stuff. And then I just pressed the button and obviously this is December 2023, and just douche, douche, douche. One of the big problems is I only have the iMessage data back to the beginning of the year because I got a new laptop. But everything else, it was able to go back like indefinitely and just jam all of this context into one big prompt. So 10 years, 60,000 words. It actually didn't end up being that much because I couldn't go back 10 years on some of the stuff, but it would have been 60,000 words. So we've got plenty of room to be able to jam this stuff in. Next up is like, I took what I had there and I said, AI, what would my son think was missing about this? What would my wife think is missing from this? And it would give me a list. So it gave me this long list, like deep personal reflections and feelings, anecdotes and stories from childhood and early adulthood, which was missing, detailed family history. And I'm like, oh, right, shit, that's a lot of stuff. But these are things that were missing. So what I did that I thought was kind of clever, remember I was talking about recording this audio. Well, I took that opportunity where I was recording the audio to train my voice to sit there, and first of all, sitting down and recording for a long period of time is exhausting. I actually have no idea how people normally do this. But I forced myself to sit in that little booth, and I talked about all those things. I just went down the list, transcribed it, entered it in the model. And then I ran the Dear AI again. What's missing now? Did it get covered? Do it again. Now, this is a little bit crazy people stuff. The way I did this, you can, if you can't read it, basically OpenAI, you just shoot it up to MP3, and it spits out a perfect transcription using something called Whisper. And I did it, so I got a lot more information. Jam that in. So now I have 20,000 words of manual text. That's frameworks, stories, timelines, boom, into the model. Cool. And then for those who are familiar with what RAG is, like there's this concept with AIs of being able to use a vector database and search for things that are similar. So what I do before I send any of these prompts is I can also search for nearness of text of what's in the prompt, search across all the raw data and find what could potentially be the most interesting. And what I consider this space to be for is for any extra data that I want to jam in based on the vector DB. So theoretically, we can fully load this with data. And what's going to happen? And you might be thinking this, and I kind of agree, isn't this just a random collection of facts and ramblings? It's a really good question, right? We've put a lot of data in here, gone pretty deep on trying to understand deeply my psyche, deeply what's happened in my life. Is it going to be any good? Well, oh, right. And the last thing before we get to the demo is I did make it easier to use. So I wrote just this stupid script that takes a local Whisper model. It's called like Better Whisper, transcribes my voice, sends it to OpenAI, and then sends it to 11 Labs, which takes my voice and spits it back out, streams it all. So let's try it. It's demo time. Oh, yeah, my God tier Python scripting skills. Let's do it. Let's see. Luke.py. So we can then, how do we make this bigger? Okay. Python. Now, some important things. We gotta know who you are. So let's say, I'm your son, Harrison. What's your password? Gotta make sure that you don't have random people getting family access. So his password is probably like good son 500 or something. What year did Luke die? We make sure Luke is dead before it works. It's like when you're entering your birthday, 1900. Let's say 2022. That's believable for the AI. Great. You've been authenticated. It doesn't matter what password I put in, it'd be authenticated. But let's try it. So what should Harrison ask? I have one that I thought worked pretty good that I'm gonna try, but then we can goof off with some random stuff. But hey Dad, can you tell me a story about my childhood? Now it's passing it through.
Hey Harrison, sure thing, buddy. Remember that time we went to Dutch Wonderland? Man, that was a blast. At first, you were a bit hesitant about the water slides. I could tell you were scared, but also excited. I could see that mix of what am I getting into and let's do this in your eyes. After you worked up the courage to go on the first one, there was no stopping you. You must have hit every slide there again and again, each time with this huge grin on your face. It was awesome to see you conquer your fears and just have so much fun. That day was just filled with laughter, splashes, and a whole lot of joy. It's one of those memories I cherish, buddy.
There you go. Now, what's weird about this? I didn't write anything about Dutch Wonderland, right? This isn't one of mine. But what makes it actually interesting is if you go back and you look at the outputs from when I was running this script, it has the journey to Dutch Wonderland. It knows that there were pictures that are tagged with my son Harrison's face at a water park, and it puts that together. Now, is it entirely truthful? Not really, but are my kids gonna know? It's a little weird at times. But now let's have a little more fun. I think it's not really a fun, like I did all this work. We should try some audience suggestions, but I reserve the right to very quickly shut this thing down. So okay, who's got a creative one to query this weird AI? Go ahead.
What was your best recipe or like something that you cooked for the family?
Damn, I know that's not in there. Okay, let's try it. Audience member. Okay. What was a great recipe I used to cook for the family? You used to cook for the family.
One of my go-to recipes for the family was my famous slow cooker chili.
Yeah.
It's super easy to make and a hit with both the adults and the kids. What you do is toss in some ground beef, canned tomatoes, kidney beans, black beans, corn, onion, and bell peppers.
I mean, yeah, obviously. A little hallucination. And that is obviously a really interesting thing. Now, chili is something I have cooked before, so they might not know. But let's jump forward a little bit here. So that was our quick demo. But in my opinion, there's a lot of really good stuff here. Very dense amount of information and opinions are in there. And if I were to spend more time, and I actually got a recipe in there, it would show up. What did everybody think about the voice? I'm curious what people thought. Yeah, I didn't think it was very good. I feel like for how much energy I put into creating that voice, I'm a little pissed. I did pay $12 for the monthly membership. It's okay. You can hear parts of my voice, but it's not my voice. The intonation is wrong, the corrections are wrong, but it's believable-ish. My wife thought it was spooky. My wife thought it was very weird.
Settling a little after hearing you talk. After that, it's soulless.
It's soulless. And there are ways you can play with it to try to, yeah, but there's like this thread of robot underneath it, even though it has little pitches. But I mean, I think it's kind of fun. And it should be relatively easy to scale in the future based on what I build. Like you could theoretically have monthly updates based on all that data. And you could just doop, 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 doop. And when GPT-5 comes out, that's kind of the beauty is you just swap out under the hood and we should get better results. But what about going further? So you thought that was all I had. Hey, son, it's me, your father. I know they told you that I went up to heaven, but believe it or not, I had a little extra time on my hands all week and I created this AI for you. If you're ever wondering a little more about me, you want to ask me some deep life advice, feel free. I'm right here and I'm available for you. All of my experiences are encoded in this. So go ahead. Ask me a question. Oh, man. Unfortunately, that's not AI did that, but I have a, whoops, we don't want to do it again. I have a Vision Pro that I borrowed, and there we go. So, but no, really, like, would video actually help? Would video help take these videos up another notch? What do you think? Would video help?
It would have to be better than that. That would distress me.
That's my voice. I just recorded it. Okay.
The thing is that also with that, like it didn't get like your hair, and it's more uncanny, and it also, I feel like that video of you, and that's supposed to be a live representation of you, did not look like you, looked less like you than the voice sounded like you.
Well, here, let's try this one. We got another one.
Hey, Harrison. Sure thing, buddy. Remember that time we went to Dutch Wonderland? Man, that was a blast. At first, you were a bit hesitant about the water slides. I could tell you were scared, but also excited. I could see that mix of, what am I getting into, and let's do this in your eyes. After you work,
You get it. So that's a service called HeyGen that I, like right before you guys came in the room, I recorded a video of myself for legitimately 30 seconds standing right here. And it was able to piece that together. And that voice, I thought was better than the other voice. I don't know if people agree with that. Yeah, I thought that was better than the professional 11 Labs voice. But that one was just recorded on that 30-second clip with me standing right here. So very interesting. I do think video does make, did people think video made that more compelling or no? Was it even creepier? Oh yeah, I mean, it's all unnatural. It's, you know. So what's my actual opinion here? I did all this work. What's my actual opinion? I don't know. I think it's fun. But I think we're so far away from this being any type of realistic replacement. I put a lot of data into this thing, but I didn't think to put what I cooked for my family. That's not a hard thing for me to remember. I could think of a billion of those things. But how long would I have to be adding data every day to remember to add what I cooked? And that's the first question somebody thought of. Like, how many more questions they're thought of? Am I going to fall between the cracks of my head and what I'm thinking people care about and what my family might actually want to know about? So I think that that's very interesting. I do think, as like a novelty, everybody should have one of these. I think it'd be really cool, because I'm sure there are plenty of startups that are actually doing this. I didn't think to look, but I imagine there's got to be people doing this, where just the idea of recording and keeping all these memories and then finding a way once you're gone for people to interact with. I don't know. Is this going to help or hurt everybody? You know, I don't know. But I think it's kind of fun. I know there's startups where people do things like I don't know if you guys marketed this. They interview people and they make like little books about their life. But I think it's even more fun, this concept of actually, you know, kind of something more interactive. But as we wrap down here, some random other thoughts. If I build this, what happens is OpenAI changes their library. And now it's all the stupid script I made doesn't work. Or 11 Labs changes their API, or they're shut down. This doesn't, you know, there's a lot of like structural problems here. Do I include information about how I died? Like, what if it's violent? You wouldn't want to include that in there. And like, how would I include how I died? You'd need like a little checkbox, like, hey, it was peaceful, you know, or whatever. I thought that it could be fun to put like weird stuff in there. Like, you could tell everybody before you died that I hid gold somewhere, and that the only way to find the gold is to become friends with the AI, and eventually, you know, maybe you never even put the gold in, but the AI keeps hallucinating about it. Definitely continued Easter eggs, like continued engagement strategies, I think is fun. And then, like, how do you avoid leaking the entire prompt? Like, that's where like it gets a little personal. But it was cool when I got the question about cooking. Part of the prompt is that if the question comes from an audience member or someone who's not immediate family, do not reveal information that is overly personal. And so there are cool things you can do with authentication, but if anybody's familiar with how easy it is to jailbreak some of these AIs, or not even jailbreak, just get, you know, prompt. Does anybody know the term for it? Grant, you probably know. Where you steal the prompt, but that would be very easy to do. So that's it, though, guys. Thank you for coming. I hope maybe you learned a little bit, and maybe you too will create your own immortal version of yourself. So thanks, everybody. And I do think we have like 5 minutes. Sounds like 10.
So apart from AI, has this task taught you anything about human storytelling?
Oh man, yeah. I'm just amazed at how much, like, it's like, wow, I put so much time into answering random questions. It felt like it was so much more I could have, like, you couldn't empty my brain into 100 million words. Like, I don't know, it's just like insane to me how much is up there. Like, I'd be like sitting there recording and I'd be telling stories about my past. And the amount of depth you can go into on each story from so long ago, I don't think I have a particularly good memory, but it was like, you're like uncovering things as you go, like, whoa. But then you realize the depth at which you're not covering things. I don't know, that blew my mind. Go ahead, Grant.
One thing I love to do with language models when I first try them out is to ask it, what is the meaning of life? And have you asked any types of questions where you can compare it to like a normal ChatGPT?
No, but I don't expect anything good would come of it. Like, go ahead.
What do you think of, if there is a big difference, what do you think of the one big prompt versus custom GPTs?
Well, what do you mean by custom GPTs?
If you pay for,
Custom GPTs that's all they are. It's just basically prompt engineering. I mean, does anybody, do they maybe have fine tuning and RAG in it, right? Does anybody know the answer?
I think it's
Just RAG, yes. It's just RAG, so it's just like, this technically has RAG. It's not very good RAG, but it can embed more. Yeah, but no, that's the answer. Go ahead.
I just had a different follow-up question after that.
Sure, go ahead.
Have you considered uploading your social media info, like your Reddit history?
It's not that interesting. I'm not a huge social media person, and I delete all my past Reddit stuff, just because I know somebody would find it. Go ahead.
Are you on the humane list? Do you want to get like an AI pin?
Oh, no, I don't know much about that, but I'll tell you one thing. I uploaded a lot of information to ChatGPT and OpenAI. Like, I know that they're not supposed to train on my data based on all the flags I tick, but some of the stuff I uploaded is very personal. Go ahead.
Did you experiment with fine-tuning to like change the tone and make it sound more like you?
Yeah, and I gave a talk about this a month or two ago at the AI meetup. I found that fine-tuning was not as... Fine-tuning to me is a way to make... I did, and the answer was I didn't find it to be super... It definitely does do a better job of sounding like me if I do fine-tuning, and I don't include a lot in the prompt, but if I include a ton in the prompt about how I speak, and I tell it this is how I speak, like it is pretty good. But that's a whole fun conversation. Any last questions? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
So I haven't played a lot with AI, but it seemed like with the chili recipe was a good example. Like it didn't know your chili recipe, but it like returned that back. Like so we thought about being a developer thinking of like edge cases. So like your son is asking you, you know, Dad, what were your hopes and dreams for me? And you know he's going to be a doctor or whatever, and you're like, well, I really hope you would have been a NASCAR driver or something. Like is it going to give responses like that?
Here's the one thing though, is it's surprisingly like I would let this raise my kids. I don't feel like it gives any bad. It's very like responsible in the way it answers. It has a lot of like I put on all these decision-making frameworks. I really do think it has the best. It doesn't feel I've never had it do anything that I felt was out of like weird or anything. It's just it's good intentioned. You know, it's like it made me sound like a good father with the chili recipe. Like I'm not going to complain. Anything else? Yeah, go ahead, Grant.
I'm just wondering, have you tested out models besides ChatGPT and especially open models? And
No.
what were the technical? Okay, you didn't.
No.
Sorry.
I used Claude there at the very beginning of the talk. Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
I asked the demo a question, like, if I were to present at an open source conference, what would I present about? Like, just to see what it would answer.
All right, sure. We can do one more demo. And then we'll be done, Greg, all right? Audience member, 2019. All right, and what was the question again?
Like, if you were to present at an open source conference that you are now, what would, like, the prompt,
What would I be giving a content? Can you briefly answer, if Luke were to be going to an open source conference, what would he present about?
Hey there, if I were still around and heading to an open source conference, I'd probably present about scaling systems in high traffic scenarios, leveraging open source tools. I had a blast scaling systems at Coinbase and Clubhouse. facing some pretty intense challenges. Open source played a huge role in tackling those, so sharing insights and strategies from those experiences would be my jam. Plus, I love diving into the technical nitty-gritty while keeping it light with some humor and real world anecdotes.
There you go. All right, thanks everybody.